USL Live podcast in the Season 53 Week 6 preview. I'm your host, Romulocks, and this show is a weekly podcast where we look at the results from the previous week, discuss the upcoming matches, and take your questions for the panel submitted to our mailbag. Joining me to discuss all that and more, I am honored to welcome into the broadcast booth my co-host for this evening. First up, we have Mecca. We have Herthbul.
Evening, gentlemen.
We have Eric.
Fuck Fausto.
The sounds of kitten there. For more information on the Unified Skirmish League, including schedule, rosters, or how you can be a part of the Unified Skirmish League, we ask that you please visit uslzone.com. All right, to start out, we're going to revisit this week's games as we always do. These games were the return to Morgan Base in Week 5. Our first game was Weaponized Autism defeated Law and Mortar 115-30. Your MVP was Chica. Mecca, start us off.
Yeah, a few things about this game. Obviously, I think who ended up winning MVP? Chica. Okay,
Chica.
Good. Yeah, she had 6K healing. Pretty rare. We'll talk about that at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that as well. Pandy dominated. Nice to see Cage out there. 14-4. I think he had a bigger impact than those stats suggest. And also Ice and Torch coming up. Probably the best game of Iceman's USL career, at least since for Infantry, right? I mean, if you can find another one, I'd gladly look, but it's got to be up there. Even Bird going 11-4. I know in the broadcast, a lot of us thought this was going to be way closer, but Law and Mortar just didn't have composure, it didn't look like. It looks like they started out with a game plan, and then it kind of broke down, and they just didn't regroup enough. They should have went north a few more times. It is a tough base, especially because it's such a brand new map. So even a lot of the vets don't have a lot of playing time on this map because Law and Mortar wasn't really active at the beginning of the season. There were a lot of them were still playing CTF when this map was first up. So I want to attribute this to just map knowledge. Other than that, shout out Pandy for getting the quadruple double as well, by the way. He had the most kills, most hits, highest accuracy, and the highest assist points in the game. So shout out Pandy.
Yeah, this really was just the Pandy show. And basically, Law and Mortar never capitalized on what few opportunities they got. I mean, there were plenty of times there were people from Weaponized Autism in a bad position, and Law and Mortar, nobody could just finish them off. And Weaponized Autism got away with literal murder. It was really sad to see. I mean, Bone was started off as Ripper, but for some reason they put him solo under the river to start, and he had no effect down there as the Ripper. He really needed to be above with another group. That way he had more angles, more cover fire could have laid down. And it, as Mecca alluded to, I think none of us thought this was going to be as much as of a blowout as it was. And I'm really sad because I feel like this was the game for Law and Mortar where if they were really going to put forth some effort, they might have been able to take this one, but it really went the full way on the other swing of the pendulum. Like, they just didn't. After 15 minutes, it felt like they didn't care at all. Even Axie, who's normally pretty composed, he had most deaths this game with 20. It's all in all, it's just a really sad game to see.
Yeah, as Mecca alluded to, I think we all expected to see the Law and Mortar team that showed up against Dark Slayers, where they looked pretty cohesive at times, like at least towards the second half of that match. But I think, alluding to what Mecca was saying about them being inactive when this map was first up, I think the pace of the map and how small it is really threw them off, because they just kept running out and they were met right away by Weaponized Autism. Pandy having a game of his life, Iceman as well, preseason Iceman hype. I know we mentioned it in the broadcast booth, but Law and Mortar, just stick a medic on Exodus and let him go to work. He's your best killer. And obviously he got tilted and stopped trying. The 20 deaths is not like him. But yeah, going forward, keep a medic on him. He's going to be your biggest damage output.
Yeah, you guys have made a lot of the good points here. I see Weaponized Autism improving steadily. They're absolutely getting some cohesion within that team. And this week was kind of the culmination of what they've been building for a couple of weeks now. Whereas Law and Mortar are kind of fading somehow. Last week, they had 38 kills against Season 27. I thought that team was significantly better than they played in Week 5. To everybody's point, there was no ninja this week, which was very interesting, particularly for fantasy teams which cried all around. But Pandy absolutely stepped up for a second week in a row and played like a god. I'd like to call out Torch too. Torch played excellent, and if you watch this game, his streams are probably the most lethal in the game for sure. Ice did have absolutely the game of his life here. And Cage and BB. BB actually started this game with like 1 kill and 17 deaths or something like that. I think he had he finished with 11 kills and 4 deaths. That is that is a significant improvement on the previous 3 games you played. So I hope these guys got a bounce in their step after this one, because WA I think are absolutely coming together. At the same time, Law and Mortar are just discombobulated. They are falling apart out there. They picked up Victim, and I thought that was going to be a really big improvement for them. And Victim did do some good things, but there was no organization and no willingness for the Marines to stay with Victim there. Exodus absolutely was just foolhardy in the way he was pushing sometimes. But as Eric says, he's the best killer, so the rest of the team probably should be nipping at his heels, not the other way around. Bowen as a Ripper I thought was more effective, and when he changed to Marine, I think that was a mistake. I've said that to him afterwards, and he did not have a good game overall. And I don't. He was apparently leading, and I think that had some influence on it because he wanted to be able to see the field. But Bowen as Ripper was kind of the only thing stopping them from pushing certain directions. The moment he goes to Marine, they ran roughshod over LAM. And another point I want to make is Abyss walked into baseline, spec'd himself. That was not a good move, but he had a 1 minute, kick for that. And Spark came in as demo. Spark was ineffective, I thought, as demo the whole time that he was in there. And I think the team has to recognize earlier, get Abyss back in there. I think you absolutely have to. He made a mistake, walked into a baseline. It could happen to any of us, I think. I think Abyss needs to not make that mistake overall, but I think you do have to get him back in there, especially when the demo that's completely ineffective and you're just trying to survive out there. So that's my view of it. But Law and Mortar missed an opportunity, to Hearth's point, a real big opportunity here, and I don't know where they go from here because that was a pretty disastrous week. Let's go on to the second game. Was Darkslayers defeated V2 by a similar scoreline, even worse, 126-31. Your MVP in this game was Fausto.
Yeah, I have 3 points for this game. One, the fantasy implications were huge. I know myself, I had Sabotage, King, dead, and then point 2 is Justice for Uni. I think it's deplorable that they didn't put anybody else in except the starting 8 in a almost 100-point kill difference. Apparently Uni had people over, but I don't buy it. And number 3, MTR3 went 13-15, which I didn't realize. Pretty crazy. He almost went even in a 100-point blowout.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when I saw the score. I was like, MTR was the only one that had a good game, but it's probably just because he played Nader, and at the end of the game, Darkslayers probably just went on autopilot and just kept running in the 40s. But you already covered it, Mecca. And the only point really is, I know Yosh isn't here, so I'll just go say it for him. Oof.
One thing before Eric goes, I want to shout out the 2 Chuck dashes too. I don't know if Eric was going to mention them or not.
No, I wasn't. I was going to say, though, I really do think we had a missed opportunity on making some money for the over-under on how long it took CT to recross baselines and get specced. That's unfortunate on our end.
Forgot about that one.
But other than that, oof.
Yeah, this was a rough one for sure. You thought it couldn't get rougher than the first game, and then the second game happened. V2 just came apart at the seams. DS comes in this game undefeated. They remain undefeated after this one. King absolutely hurling 40s out there, gave those guys PTSD. One funny thing that came out of the broadcast booth in this game was a combination of Dead and Daddy into Deddy, which is kind of their Benifer name. And I appreciated that because they're playing very well. I like the combo of those guys a lot. Sabotage and King just go off. Fausto, Chuck, Ender. Everybody clicking over for DS. On the other side, the only bright spot is to talk about MTR3, but most of those kills came at the very end of the game. It was kind of like what we were talking about, what Jeff called split out for in the next game that we're going to be talking about. It just MTR3 didn't get those kills with the beginning when it would have mattered in terms of the shift in the momentum. But at least kudos to him for getting them at all, because other than him, it was just a complete drop off and a rough game for V2. Similar to Law and Mortar, these guys need to start practicing a lot more on teamwork and moving together. That's for sure, because they were all over the map. Let's see here. The last game we had on this week was Season 27 defeated Out for Blood 78-31. Your MVP in that game was Splitta.
I want to shout out Splitta. I'll reiterate Jeff's point. I think he was 4-4 at one point. End up going 11-4 or 11-5. This game I did not think was going to be this far apart. I had confidence that we were going to win. And not just because Eric's here, but I do want to shout out Eric here. A lot of people were ragging on him after the game, especially Splitta and some other people. Like it was his fault because he couldn't match Sov, but we just did a way better job of supporting Sov. Like if you rewatch the game when the video releases, you'll see me, Kaga, and Ahmed kind of always shadowing Sov on the outside under mid. OFB didn't do that until like the second 15 minutes when I think Mountain took over, and he was starting to go in mid a little bit, but not really his fault when he doesn't get support and he's fighting 2 versus 1 a lot. So I wanted to start with that. Secondly, I think there was a pretty big med difference in this game. I generally think Bonds is one of the better meds in the game, and I think Water's on rusting and getting better. But I think they got exposed a little bit in this game. But I won't blame the whole thing on them, just because this map 1 is so fast. 2, the positioning for OFB wasn't great, so it makes it really hard to med when you're kind of always caught in that open bottom left area when you're trying to fall through skinny rocks. It's just not easy, and we had superior angles. So overall, not as good of a game as it should have been. I think on a different map, though, this game would be a little bit closer.
Yeah, I think you can't really single out, other than maybe the medics by a slight percentage. OFB as a whole just really, I'm going to say, underperformed compared to our expectations of how this match was going to go. It was really not a single player. It's just their positioning as a whole was just, they weren't all on the same page. It was almost always one group that would fall back, and the other 2 sides would just maintain their current position. And Season 27 just proceeded to take complete advantage of that and just walk all over them. Mecca already alluded to, definitely a med difference. I felt bad for Bonds and Water because they did kind of get exposed a little bit. But, I mean, Season 27 across the board, if you look at the stats, no one, I mean, other than Sav, who obviously is the best player ever, the rest of the team did amazingly well. They score lines very even across the board, and you can really tell it was a complete team effort on their part.
Yeah, you want to talk about bad dashes? Let's talk about my fat finger dash into the wall and just sat there and started laughing at myself and dying trying to support Mountain. But no, it was ESO leading the first 15, and it just wasn't working. So SV took over, and like Mecca alluded to, when SV started leading, SV started supporting me in mid, and it was better fights. I think it started off pretty ugly, like 30-10 or something like that. Obviously it didn't get much better, but I think as a whole in the second half of the map, our positioning was a little bit better. Our medics were a little bit more protected. But I do know that I think Water died first quite a few battles, and that hurt us. And that's not necessarily on him. Like you said, a lot of it was positioning. I thought it was weird that we were, at least the first 15, ESO wanted me kind of more so with the group, and it wasn't the best area to fight as an AT. But I mean, overall, you guys did a better job swinging people and overloading our weak side essentially, and cleaning it up. There were a few missed opportunities on our end, poor focus fire really, and just not being able to close out kills. Like I think one that stood out to me was Kevin under the river, completely like kind of pushed up after we got a kill on somebody, and we just couldn't kill them. Other than that, you guys outplayed us. It was a good game.
Man, Jeff called it out so many times in the broadcast. I'll get these videos up very shortly. Jeff called it very early. He said, I don't know what game plan OFB is running because it seemed like like there were so many disjointed parts of your game. And Eric, you were exactly what you said. You were fighting with the group the whole time. It looks like you were being ordered not to go find the flanks. It didn't look like it was your fault. It looks like you were doing exactly what you were told to do. And I didn't think it made any sense at all. Your OFB was not looking for any extra angles. They were not looking to push anything. It was like you guys were being reactive, but you weren't even doing good at that. You were because what they would do is they would just probe the north or the south, and then as soon as they had a weak spot, whether it be water or a marine, as it was many different times, I think mountain was a couple of them. There were a couple other guys. They would just poach that guy off. And then it was 7v8 and it was off to the races. And very quickly, it typically was a medic that died second and went down to an 8v6. And then it's over. And that's how you got ESO going. What did he finish? 4 and 7 because he's just fallen out of battle after battle. He stayed alive in those battles, but he wasn't getting any kills. I just thought OFB got dominated on whatever side because you didn't make any decisions. You just sat in the middle at the same spot and didn't choose anything to do. Eric and AT, it was a controversy to talk about it, but I don't think it was the major problem at all. I thought that Sav and Kaga was just lighting it up all day, and they were picking the guys they wanted to kill. Sav was getting his flanks. He was getting vision. He was getting ambushes. It was like Season 27 played the game they wanted, and OFB was just trying to react and couldn't figure out what to do. At any point, we're constantly second-guessing themselves. And one thing I just want to point out is that this may be a controversial thing on that map, but that river underneath, like TG and Tactical have both said multiple times, there is no sense sending 3 people under river. They will never get the advantage because if the team realizes, any good team that realizes they're under river like that is going to push really hard over top with everybody. And like it happened. It happened over and over again. And yet you guys kept sending 3 underneath. And I mean, I don't consider myself the smartest guy in this game, but I think TG and Tactical are pretty sharp. And I see the same thing. I just never see anybody winning when they go through more than one person underneath that bottom river.
Can I say one thing about that, by the way? So during this week, we played OFB in scrims a couple times, and I'm not saying for sure this is why it happened.
And I can guarantee you it is why it happened.
SVNT or ESO or Eric were like in our Discord, and Pfister and I kept hammering down the fact that you absolutely need to have 3 under the river. We were kind of trying to set them up in hopes that they would expect us to have 3 under the river, and I can't be for sure, but seems like it might have worked.
I can.
I mean, it is like there's just not enough space for 3 people to operate down there. It doesn't seem like it should take that much thought. It just can't happen. I don't know, but that's just my view on it. But I'll leave that for wiser captains to debate. Let's move on and talk about some Week 6 games. We are returning to Y Station for round 2. These games aren't set in stone. The 11 o'clock is. The 9:30 and the 10:15 will be one of these 2 games. Let's talk first about Out for Blood versus Law and Mortar.
Yeah, I think this is going to be another bloodbath. Out for Blood plays, I think, better on this map. For at least when I scrimmed with them, they play better on this map than they do on Morgan's. So I think they're going to want to push the pace. They're going to want to reclaim some dignity, and they're going to just try to win this by maybe 100, like what Weaponized Autism does. I don't know if they can, because I think Law and Mortar will be a little bit more organized on this map. It's a little less open, and they can hide a little bit more, so you might see Law and Mortar camp a little bit. But I think OFB is going to really push the pace, and I would suggest getting a lot of these guys on Fantasy this week.
Yeah, it's going to be another bloodbath. I don't think Law and Mortar is really keen on running a lot of plays or ambushes, so even if they try to come up with 1 or 2, it's not going to carry them the whole match. Plus, I'm pretty sure everybody from Out for Blood is going to be pretty fired up and trying to get a little redemption from the beatdown that they just took. So I think they're going to take it out on Law and Mortar.
Yeah, you might see stat pad only Shash show up. Fucking bum. But I want to see Law and Mortar run an AT because I see Thiz constantly in scrims and in pub playing AT. And if they are going to set up ambushes or if they're looking to get angles, this is a good map to let him do his thing and try and scout out or, try and set some stuff up. But I expect a Ripper from Bowen. I expect LMG from Axie. And if Spark has to play, he's obviously going to be demo because he doesn't play anything else. And yeah, it's just going to be a bloodbath.
I don't disagree. Everything you guys have said, all the points I'd make. I would like to see Thiz in this game. I know he didn't. I don't think he showed up this weekend. He definitely needs to get in. I'd like to see Abyss play. I agree. Bowen needs to be Ripper. See what you guys can do. There's no harm in experimenting now. Trying to figure out exactly what works going into that V2 game. This is all about prepping for the V2 game, and for OFB, to Hurst's point. I that's a trend I have seen is that when a good team loses a tight game, particularly if they lose it bad, they look to take it out on the next team they see that they know they can beat. And Law and Mortar, unfortunately, is that rebound for OFB, and I think it's going to be a slam dunk for sure. Let's go on to the 10-15. Talk about Dark Slayers versus Birds. Your team of your match of the week. The pairing off of the undefeateds.
Yeah, I don't really know what to think about this match. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Birds is going to win, but I think Dark Slayers is going to play this map super slow. We SB'd them after the games last night, and they were left side, and they basically just camped that middle building, south area a lot, and it's not an easy push. I think Birds can do it, but the issue is if you're on that left side and you get a kill, the DS is so quick that it's almost not advantageous to get the kill because then they have a solo flank behind you. I think they'll run tier nadir or demo here, and they're going to be able to hold the chokes pretty well. But I think Birds just has too much talent, and I think they win out just from sheer experience and the talent difference. And I would expect this game probably Birds wins by 16, I'll say.
I think Birds is going to win as well, probably by, like you said, a 2 or 3 fight difference. But as Mecca also, I completely agree with Tyrael being nadir and or demo, depending on how he feels at the moment. Darkslayers is just going to play very slow, kind of campy, and force Birds to push into him. So, and especially on this map, it's perfect for their play style. So they're going to have a field day with it. But I think at the end of the day, yeah, there's just too much experience and talent on Birds to really, for Birds to lose this one.
Also, breaking news: Birds Birds won the coin toss, so they'll probably take left. So you probably throw
Stealing my fucking thunder, this guy.
My bad.
Well, since Mecca said that, I'm looking forward to. I would say I'm looking forward to the Chuck versus Chompy, but I fully expect it to never be just a 1v1. I fully expect Fausto or him having somebody to shadow Chuck to deal with Chompy and look for that as their first pick. Because they're going to be on the right side, they're going to be holding that rat tunnel that I like to call that south kind of middle choke, and they're going to be content sitting close to their base and slowing this down. They might have some ambushes on mid or the northeast rocks kind of outside their base. They'll probably set up some ambushes around. Probably have Brohart like he tried to do on EC, sitting behind that rock trying to flank Chompy when he comes around. But I think Birds just has too much firepower for these guys to compete with, especially if they somehow manage to catch them in a rotation in the open. I just see Birds winning it by probably about 20 kills.
Yeah, I think smart money has to be with Birds, but it comes down to a few questions. First of all, I have a question of who are your. We're going to talk about it here in a minute in a question that comes up in the mailbag, but who is your starting roster for Dark Slayers? Because it could not be more important in this game. And then I think it comes down to the medics generally, the Deddy combo. Those guys have to play out of their minds if Dark Slayers wants to compete at all. And probably the most important player in the game is going to be King. If he plays Grenadier, can he get a mortar kill? One mortar kill to start off a battle could be everything in this kind of game. But too many things have to go right for Dark Slayers, and I just don't see him doing it. I think Birds takes it. I think the firepower is too much, just like Eric and her said. Um, That'll be our match of the week, though. Definitely looking forward to it. And make sure you go to the USL site and vote for who you think will win that game. I'm interested to see the numbers there. On the 11 p.m. time slot, we definitely have Weaponized Autism going up against V2. Is it another performance like Law and Mortar for you, Mecca?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you see one. I know I shouted out Iceman earlier, but he's also a piece of shit because Pandy could have got 30 and Ice stole his skill with 5 seconds to go. So Pandy should have got 30. But Ice and Torch might 2 weeks in a row have the best games of their career. They might up what they did from last week. So this, to me, I think it's not going to be a very good game, but fantasy watch. So I will be watching this game for fantasy. It's kind of like NBA League Pass. You learn the magic because you got them on your fantasy team when they're not really a fun team to watch. So kind of what I'm looking forward to in this game.
Yeah, this game's just for fantasy points. I think Law and Mortar is a better team than V2, and Weaponized Autism beat the crap out of Law and Mortar, so they're just going to do the exact same thing here to V2. And I think you'll still see the same stars. There'll be Torch, Ice, Pandy. And hopefully Pandy actually drops the 30 bomb on everybody this game.
In the spirit of Yosh. Oof.
He's here with us. Yeah. Weaponized Autism definitely going to win. I'll be interested to see who the starting 8 are for this one for Weaponized Autism for sure. V2, you just want to see any kind of improvement at all. But after that one, I don't know. That was just that was a rough one in the last week in week 5. And they're definitely gonna have to do some soul searching if they want to compete against WA, especially the way they're looking right now. But I do think it's a lock for WA. Season 27 will have a bye week in week 6, so they will catch back in week 7.
I'd love to see Kevin and Pister announce a game since they're off, by the way.
Absolutely. Step up After Dark. Let's go. Calling you out. Let's go to the mailbag. We have a lot of mailbag questions this week. Some really intense ones, some good ones. A lot of thought going into some of these questions. Let's start with this. We had a question live during the Law and Mortar versus Weaponized Autism game that was very interesting. Who has recorded the highest known heal points in a league match? Mecca was asked the question directly, or he saw the question in the pub chat, and I think has been able to locate some information to help answer that question in more detail, if you would, Mecca.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, shout out to Kevin and Havoc for doing the live stats breakdown, and also Havoc dove a little bit deeper. And I'll post a list right here on USL Discord. And the highest heal points ever was actually from -0. The only player to ever heal more than 7,000 heal points in a game.
Oh my god!
And then you see, if you look over 6K, there's not that many either. The reason we bring that up is because Chica, like I said in the broadcast, actually hit 6K just barely. But if you look at the rest of the meds in there, you got Kippa, Kaga, Pister, -0 again, Stavudine, Daddy, Fax, CC, and then Chica adds in the list. So it's a pretty crazy list. You have some people who are considered the best meds of all time, and strangely enough, there's no iron. So I think this kind of proves the point that you're always going to get less heal points when you're on the best squad. Because I think we can all agree Iron's the best man in the game, and he's not on the 6K heal. So either he's overrated, which I doubt, or good squads don't have high healing.
Also shows that -0 has tried his best in a few games.
Yeah, 7K is insane.
Yeah,
considering.
I mean, Fax almost hit it too with 69.56.
Yeah, I wonder how he must have been pissed that he didn't hit it. The other thing I would say too is usually when I do the breakdowns at the end of the year, how much heal points per games med have. Most of the winners and nominees average like 3,300 to 3,700.
Yeah.
So to get 7K in a game or even over 6K is pretty insane.
I feel like if you average 3,750 on the season, you had a good season. So
exactly.
doubling that, oh my word! Like or -0, the god. All right. Let's see here. Panel, will you help me resolve this dispute? Which of these squads was more stacked? Was it the season 23 Warhawks or the season 53 Birds? Just to remind you, the Warhawks had Rio, Kaga, Tactical, TG, Fax, Soul, Staley, and Stavadine. Birds had Rio, Chompy, Tactical, TG, Colossal, Fax, Slob, and Staley.
I'll let Eric go first since I know he had a lot of thoughts on this.
I didn't have thoughts on this one in particular. It was the next
Oh, that was
question,
the other
but
one. Oh, my bad. Yeah.
yeah, I gotta go with Warhawks. I think Soul is a big factor into that one. It's tough, man. That's actually tough.
It is tough.
What season Warhawks was that?
Season 23.
That was season 23.
That's the one that,
okay.
that's the one that let's see.
We went to OT in the champ game.
Absolutely.
Oh, right.
Also,
right.
Soul played Ripper. Remember that one time and held off the entire team.
Yeah, I think he went 2-8 or something.
Yeah. Everybody was ripping on him for his score, but it turns out he was like the most vital part of that whole game.
He was so OP they deleted the class essentially.
Yeah, I have to go with season 23 Warhawks too. That team was absolutely stout, and Kaga was a madman on LMG that season. That's the season he started going off. And Rio, that was his comeback season. He wasn't even warmed up yet. But yeah, that team was really, really stacked. So,
I think I have to agree too, because I think Kaga ended up with I think he beat me by 2 kills. I think he had 134 kills that season. So,
yeah,
just abusing the OP LMG.
Yeah,
I think when you have Kaga LMG, it's pretty good.
Just a bunch of killers on that team. There's a bunch of killers on Birds too, but just slightly better maybe. Which squad is considered the most stacked in the free infantry era? Why? And would any current squad have a shot at defeating them?
So this is the one Mecca and I were kind of going back and forth about. I said season 2 Special Forces, which was Champion, Colossal, Herc, Dog, ESO, M4, Fake Chaos, T, Manu, Predator, Kippa, Sov, Dinobot, which is a throwaway, Iron, and TV.
You're talking about Melov, Dog, right?
Yeah.
Oh man, what a team that is.
Yeah, I mean the Marines on that list. I mean, Sov could Marine. I think he was medic back then, but I could be wrong. But just you have Kippa and Manu as your medics, and everybody else is pretty good, and they have the depth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my argument was for season 6 Cobra Kai, who I believe went undefeated and won the ring.
I think
it
so
was
too.
Champion, Chaos, Apto, aka Jake, Big Fat Noob, Colossal, Devil, Dinobot, ESO, Fresh, myself, Kevin, Soul, Sov, Iron, and Ninja. The reason I picked them, you lose Kippa, but you're swapping out M4, T, and Kippa for Soul, Ninja, and myself. And I just think that one's a little bit better, but I think it's very, very, very close. And I think K-Dude is probably right up there too. If not 2 or 3, they're in the top 3 as well. K-Dude from last season was pretty ridiculously stacked as well.
Nosekeeper was on that, right?
The other part,
yeah,
Nosekeeper was on what?
And he on the K-Dude, and he showed up for playoffs. So yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point too.
And I think the second part was which current squad would stand a chance against that team?
Yes.
It's kind of hard to say just because it shares some players. But for the sake of sharing less players, I would say Birds.
Yeah.
I think Jeff is the only shared player on those rosters, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Wait, was Fax on either one of those? No, I don't think he was.
Nope.
Especially if Soul started showing. But even without Soul, I think with Rio Tactical Team, I think absolutely that's a competitive squad with any of those that you named, for sure. Anybody else on that one? Or do we got it all? Okay. Let's see here. Is it merely a coincidence that Axis added automated baseline specking in the same season as Karatank's debut? Have the USL admins or After Dark team investigated the extent to which the CTF Shadow Council has been hiding Karatank's greatness from the world, and Angelus for that matter?
Angie!
We all miss him. Come back.
Now he gets to stay in witness protection.
Yeah, he's hiding from CT. I think it was one of the funniest moments in USL history when Tank, who is basically the backs of CTF as far as shit talk goes, immediately crosses right line and gets specced out, and then they don't. I don't think they put him back in the game.
140
So
seconds is how long he
it
played.
was great to see, and I don't think Exodus is a fan of Tank either. But I don't think that he would sabotage him like that. I think Tank just likes to sabotage himself.
Yeah, he's much like Bax, big on self-sabotaging.
But we're
Can't get out of his own
scrimmaging
way.
all week, and the baselines have been there for a while. I mean, both Carrot Tank and Abyss, like, stop crossing the lines, guys. Like,
I mean, how often do you see V2 actually scrim, though, especially the last week or so?
true.
I mean, come on, Rom. You can't teach a dumb dog new tricks.
Okay, fair. I assume that applies to Carrot Tank. I don't know. I'm not reading into it. Let's move on. There's currently a noticeable lack of cohesion happening on Out for Blood. Who is leading? Who should be leading? And what does this squad need to change to be able to compete with the current top 3 squads? And I think they included Darkslayers, I assume, in the top 3.
I'll answer on the leading or who's been leading. It's been a mixture of ESO and SV. Like I said in the breakdown of last week's match or yesterday's match, it was ESO for the first 15 and then SV for the second 15. You can make an argument to have Yosh lead, step up and lead, and let SV, ESO, myself focus on killing.
No kidding.
And you could also make the argument to keep letting Mountain lead. He does it throughout the week. It's probably the most stable leading, if you will. Everybody's used to it. So yeah.
My problem with Mountain, though, is that he typically thinks that he will do something before he says it to other people, and so everybody's like a half or 2 steps behind him in terms of, you know, especially if you're not just trying to predict exactly what he's thinking. And I also think he's just he gets a little tunnel visioned, especially when he's leading, in a way that he doesn't if he just has to kill. I think he's probably more a leader of a flank. I was thinking Yosh, or if Apollo's going to play, Apollo would be a good leader in terms of, because we've all talked about when you lead, you have a drop off in skill because you have to focus on that job. Well, Apollo's putting up decent numbers for you, but he could probably stand to lose a little bit, and nothing much is going to change. But yeah, for Eric, for Mountain, for ESO, you want those guys focused on killing, not on leading. So I agree. I think Yosh or Apollo would be my picks if I'm looking for a way to improve it.
I would say Yosh as well. Experience leading, has led a team to the championship before, and like Eric said, it would unlock ESO, Eric, and Mountain, which I think they all need to basically have their best games if they want to compete with Birds season 27 and maybe Darkslayers. So I think Yosh should lead. I know he's not as active during the week. So if it's not Yosh, then definitely Mountain. Just let ESO run it down as LMG. And you'd lose a little bit on the Mountain skill. So I just think because Yosh isn't as active, might not be the greatest call, but ideally he'd get more active towards the end of the season playoffs and he could take over.
I think they just need to come up with a dedicated one, especially for playoffs, because I think regular season, yeah, you guys have kind of tried everything at this point, and obviously versus the top squads, it didn't work out so well. So just kind of figure out whatever works best for playoffs.
Where does the panel currently rank OFB compared to Darkslayers going into week 6? And how about the OFB compared to Weaponized Autism?
I mean,
So
OFB versus DS has already been played out. They won that match, right? DS did, so I think DS is better because of that. And I feel the same against Weaponized Autism, right? DS beat Weaponized Autism, and I think we're slightly better. I do think Weaponized Autism did improve, but I don't think they're there quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, Weaponized Autism has definitely improved with Cage and Torch, but OFB has also improved with Eric and Yosh as well, and swapping out some of the meds. Because that DS versus OFB match, OFB had like 3 or 4 starters in, that start now. So I think it's almost not even comparable. But because they did beat them, I'll put DS first. But I don't think it would be a shock for OFB to beat DS in the first round of the playoffs. But I also don't think it'd be a shock for DS to beat OFB. I think it's pretty close. I might give the slight edge to OFB depending on the map, but like I said, I wouldn't be surprised either way. I would, however, be shocked if Weaponized Autism was able to beat either of them. So I think I clearly have Weaponized fifth, and then I'll say OFB fourth and DS third.
Yeah, Mecca's got spot on. I think the old OFB who DS beat, you kind of almost have to consider it like a completely different squad. OFB's revamped, new players, new medics, the whole 9 yards, so they're going to have a completely different look. And I think Weaponized Autism still has some players that aren't quite up to snuff, still some people you can single out and take advantage of, and it just puts them behind Dark Slayers and OFB. But yeah, if somehow those two squads run up against each other in the playoffs, it'll be really interesting to see who comes out ahead.
I don't disagree with any of those takes. Does the panel believe that Mecca staying with OFB would have changed the outcome of last night's match in any meaningful way? I'll go ahead and say that Mecca, you had a damn good game. 11-1. I thought your focus fire was really good. I thought you played really well. You were a standout player, even on the season 27 roster. But if you switch you over to OFB, I don't know if that meaningfully changes the difference. I think that the problem is the game plan overall. Also, that there weren't any players trying to like make it happen on the corners, either north or south. And maybe Mecca might have done that, overall. But I think it was more the game plan generally, and players just feeling like they that's not what their job was.
I think I think season 27 winning would be the same. I think the score would be closer. I think Mecca would have done with me what he was doing with Sov and shadowed me right from the get-go, and we would have played more around mid the first 15 minutes versus what we tried to do. So I think it would have been closer, especially because Mecca probably would have been leading and SV would have been focused on killing. So, but I still give the result to season 27.
Result would have been the same. Scores closer. I mean, Mecca just came back recently too, so it's not like he's got a bunch of time with OFB if he stuck with them. He would have only been there for a week or two, so even if he was leading, it's not like he would have gotten them into shape in time for this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I tend to agree. I'll just echo what Herth and Eric said. I think the game would have been a lot closer. I would have, I think, identified what season 27 wanted to do quicker. It's like I know what Pisser and Sov want to do probably better than anybody. But I think they probably still win. I think it just gives us it would have given OFB a better chance to win.
I also think if you've been on OFB, if you had taken over the reins of leadership, that would have made a meaningful difference. But that's just my thought. Who is the biggest Sov dick rider of all time and why? Is it Eric?
Bus rider. It's different.
Is it Eric, Mecca, Iso, Pister, or Splitta? Bus rider is fine. Dick rider, we could substitute. Which one do you prefer?
So, but let me get a clarification from the person. Bus rider, right? Are we talking about just kind of riding the coattails?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Okay. So far, it's got to be Splitta because he was 4-4, did nothing meaningful in that match until the end. He wasn't breaking open any fights. He hasn't done anything in a regular season with Sov yet. I think it's easier to tell once he plays with him in the playoffs because that's honestly when it only matters, right? But that's all I got.
I'll go with, man, I'll be the one who says Pister, I think, has yet to do anything by himself that the achievements he has, the rings he has, are as a result of Sov. He has yet to do anything like that. I mean, you could say the same for Split, I guess. But Pister, I think, has been in Sov's shadow for a long time. He's been striking out on his own the past 5 seasons now, but has yet to come down with that ring. So I don't know. I got to say Pister at this point.
I think it depends
on
on
mute him.
I think it depends on how the season turns out. Because Pister is leading, right? So if season 27 wins this season, I think it is Splitta because it'd be his first ring since George Bush was president. And Pisser would be leading a squad. I mean, yeah, I know you have Sav on it, but if Pisser's leading, then he's proving that he can lead a squad to the championship.
Yeah.
But are we really assuming that Sav's not going to lead in the playoffs, especially if it gets down to crunch time?
No, he's not going to. He's not going to take over like he did for TG last season and clean it up and win K2 to ring, I don't think.
Shade. All right. This question piggybacks directly off that question. If Splitta wins a ring this season, will the ring even be considered legitimate? Split is on record saying that any ring won with Sav is not a legitimate ring. But does that change if Split is the one who wins with Sav on his team?
In his mind, it changes, but using his logic against him, no, it doesn't count.
To be fair to Splitta, though, I know we're not always fair to Splitta on this podcast. He already said if he wins a ring, it doesn't count. So he's made that public information. So he kind of answered his own question.
Splitta, I think they all count. I think your ring will count. Yeah. Kudos to anybody who wins a ring with or without Sav.
Just remember, one person doesn't make a squad. Sav has lost in the finals before.
100%. Yeah. Generally to Birds or Hawks. Let's see here.
Or Yosh, actually, season 3.
Who had the worst performance for week 5? There are a number of candidates. It could be a whole team. It could be an individual player, or it could be a man with learning disabilities who cannot comprehend baselines.
I think I take the last one.
I also take the last one.
But he was only bad for 140 seconds. I mean, does that really trump people being bad for 30 minutes?
Is it trump all of V2 and all of Law and Mortar?
I mean,
honestly, maybe.
Yeah, because what was it?
Honestly, maybe.
The first week this map was up, he did it like 3 times in a row, right? And
yes.
you think he would have learned?
I'm not convinced he wasn't trolling. Like, that was pretty seemingly intentional.
Oh, Rom, your ignorance to how fucking stupid he is.
I don't understand how you do that many times, especially after a whole 140 seconds.
I'll give you 2 sentences to describe CT. Or not 2 sentences, but a couple phrases. Have you ever seen the movie Shutter Island? You know how Leo thinks he's the cop in it?
Yeah.
CT pretends he's a therapist, but we're all convinced that he's actually going to therapy. And he just thinks that he
just uses the terminology he hears the next day.
Yeah, and he thinks he's a therapist when he's talking to his therapist. Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Moving on. All season long, USL Live has said that Darkslayers are not a championship contender. Yet here they stand with 2 huge matchups remaining in an undefeated season. With Fausto, Tyrael, Daddy, Dead, Chuck, and Sabotage as locks in the current lineup. Who does the panel see as the best choices for the final 2 slots for that roster for DS? And really your choices kind of are limited to Typhoon, Ender, Universal Soldier 2K, and Brillheart.
It was a tough one.
I say Ender and Uni. I think Ender and Uni are probably your last 2 locks.
I think Ender for sure. I don't think he plays great every game, but I think Ender's ceiling is higher than any of the other 3, and I don't think it's close.
Agreed.
Plus, he can talk on Discord. He's led. He's won rings. He's got the experience. Second one, I think Uni's had a better couple seasons, but I still don't think I trust him against like season 27 or OFB or Birds. He's just a little too passive. He's always like soloing, but he kind of just falls out. And then on the other hand, you got Typhoon, who just rushes too much and kind of makes dumb mistakes and rushes in. Generally a pretty solid player, pretty good player, I would say, but has some brain lapses where he just, I don't know if it's an ego check or what, but he'll just rush in. So with all that said, I think it's Ender and Brill, because like Bonds just said, Brill has some really good law snipes. And Brill, he might not have a high ceiling as Typhoon necessarily, but his floor is also not nearly as bottom. There's not as much variance. I think Brill has been pretty much Brill his entire career. And Brill talks now, like Fausto said. I've heard it. That's not a rumor. I heard it when I snuck onto DS Discord. That's 100% true. So you have that now, because his always biggest downfall was, yeah, he can solo flank, but he doesn't have a mic. So now that he has a mic, I think I take Brill and Ender.
I think it's Ender for sure.
yeah.
Sorry, Rom.
No,
I think
you're
it's
good.
Ender for sure. And then I don't think Uni shows up to the big matches, so it's kind of risky to put him in. And Typhoon, yeah, I don't think he fits the Dark Slayer's play style as much as Brill does. I mean, it's tough between those two. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong one way or the other, but they have the best chance at winning. It's Ender and Brill.
Man, okay, so first of all, we are all in agreement. Ender should be in there. He is one of the two easily. I don't even think this should be a question. I don't understand why Ender isn't one of the locks in this roster. He is the seventh man. If he's there, he's in my book. It's crazy. And I agree with what Ice is saying in chat. He is an SL legend. He's a legend in this game, period. So it's really a question of Typhoon, Uni, and Brill. And I think you're nuts not to take Typhoon. I think his law snipes are really good. He's rarely going to go negative. It does depend on if he's impaired or not to whether to how effective he really is in the game. But if he is unimpaired, I mean he has a chance of being top 3, maybe even number 1 overall. And I don't think you're going to get that out of Uni or Brill at any point for number 1 overall. And I think his Typhoon's flanks. If you put him on another with another good flanking Marine, he just has that mentality about him. He's going in. So I would pick Typhoon, but it seems like we all can make successful arguments for each of the 4.
Can I interject here with some stats about Typhoon real quick?
Shoot,
absolutely.
Count me down.
Just looking at his scores from the past couple seasons. Season 25, Jersey Boys versus Darkslayers, 9-12. Season 26, Darkslayers versus K-Dude, 1-8. K-Dude versus Darkslayers, 0-4. Darkslayers versus Cocaine, 2-7.
Okay. So you're saying in big moments he doesn't live up to the hype and doesn't perform. Maybe he does have that.
He gets picked off.
Maybe he does have that.
He's usually the first one to go down.
He's over aggressive, and Darkslayers can't cover him when he's over aggressive because Darkslayers is generally more of a passive team. So I think he gets exposed. He's like almost like a Pandy with less Pandy. Like really good player, one of the best aims in the game. But when it comes to the big moment, sometimes he's too far ahead.
Yeah, I do think there's been a noticeable improvement in Typhoon over the last 3 seasons. Last season kind of was a step back, but I think so far the games this season, I think he's been pretty good. And he would still be probably my pick, but I might just take that risk, you know. Let's see here. When Champion inevitably rejoins season 27, does their roster become more stacked than K-Dude's roster was last season? If you cross out shared players, you're left with Pister, Mecca, Kaga, Havoc, and Split versus TG, Ernie, Colossal, Fax, and Eric.
I mean, pretty clearly not.
He adds.
It's also fucked up. You didn't mention Kevin, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't write the question. So he wants to add his answer. Everyone knows Eric is trash. See Last Night, for example. And Fax is old and washed up. See Fausto, for example. Thus, we can safely assume season 27 will be far more stacked when Champion returns to the roster.
Well, to piggyback off that, who's going to bench when Champ rejoins come playoffs?
Anybody?
Is it going to be Kevin or
Roll
is it going to
the
be
dice?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd have to pick Kevin at this point, although he played pretty well, I thought, last night, especially on the solo flank.
And then possibly Naj showing?
Ooh. Maybe you said both of them. He had Splitta and Kevin sitting. Oh, no. It'd be trouble in River City on that one. Anybody else got any thoughts on that? Nope.
No.
Okay.
It's K-Dude.
If LMG and AT were removed from the game, which squad would have the biggest drop off and which squad would benefit the most?
Ooh.
I don't know. A lot of people forget that we all played Marine and Medic meta for 20 plus years.
A bajillion years.
Yeah.
So AT wasn't really meta until
he came back.
Hiatus.
And generally, if you're a good AT player, you have been a good Marine for seasons previous.
Of course, you have to be. It's not necessarily a shared skill set, but it's you have to have your probably smartest player on AT. because they're going to be doing all the soloing and they have to communicate from the AT as
Chuck
well.
might be the only exception to that
I was
rule.
gonna say, what about Chuck?
That's true, yeah. And Chompy too. Chompy's never really marined either.
But if
He went from shitty ass Ranger to AT, and now he looks like one of the best.
When Chuck was
players in the game.
experimenting with Ranger, we were all saying this. He needs to go play Marine because there were so many games we were saying if he were Marine, they would be crushing right now. And I think AT, we're seeing that because the AT shots are just so damaging. Yes, he has that limited range, but his accuracy is so good that he's slaying it right now. I think that's kind of the point we were making being shown.
Yeah, I mean Chuck, but it's not like Chuck's a new player to infantry either, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he's some brand new guy who just like picked up 18 and does well with it. He's a mouser. He's played SK before. He plays a lot of CTF. So it doesn't really surprise me that Chuck has found his class, because sometimes it's just about your specific skill set and finding an OP class and abusing it. And that's what Chuck's doing. I think the LMG question is more important, because what would Birds look like without Rio LMG? What would season 27 look like without Kaga LMG?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
What would OFB look like with ESO, not LMG? I think, I don't know. I've seen Kaga and Rio Marine before, and they're both good. But
Legacy
I think
at
Rio's
Marine,
a better Marine than Kaga.
Yeah, Legacy at Marine is still very stout. I think we got to grant that.
Yeah, it's not as good as LMG, though.
Yeah, we've also seen ESO Marine several seasons, especially in SOE, and play very well. So I would say of OFB Birds in season 27, just because I think DS has the biggest drop off, with Chuck having to switch to Marine and Sabo having to switch to Marine instead of LMG. I think the biggest drop off is Kaga as Marine against Rio and ESO, right?
I agree. You think the drop off for Sav is that it matters at all? Does it even factor into your analysis there?
Sav's going to be good on whatever class he plays.
No
it don't matter.
Yeah, I mean, then you got to consider, like, would you rather have Sav Marine or Chompy Marine? Like, Chompy's a really good player, but is he as good not on AT or LMG as Sav is at Marine? So there's kind of a balance there. But I think it's actually DS. I think you're right. Without Sabo LMG, Sabo Marine is not that scary to me.
And
Chuck, he's a good player, obviously.
And Chuck being forced into the Marine. Yeah, I think it's DS.
Chuck Marine too. I think it's DS.
Yeah, because Chuck just doesn't have a good backup class whatsoever.
Yeah, because Rangers OP and terrible at the same time.
That's an interesting comment in itself. We should unpack that at some point. Let's see here. Last question. With Tactical reminding us that playoffs will be based on regular season maps, which maps does the panel predict will end up being chosen for playoffs? A reminder that we are voting by squads. Each squad gets one vote, and the maps are Morgan Base, Y Station, Apollo's map, and Bombs map.
I think you see Y Station and Apollo's.
Yeah, I don't think that you see Bombs at all, because whoever's the lower seed gets Titan, and who the fuck wants to play Titan in the playoffs on Bombs map?
Yeah. I think there could be an argument for Morgan Base, though. I think it's been a good map.
I think Apollo's is definitely a lock. I think Y Station or Morgan is going to be the second one. I think that's going to be the semifinal map. I think Apollo's map is probably going to be the champ map this season.
I actually think, yeah, I agree with that. But I also think that it really depends on how the Dark Slayers Birds game goes on Y Station. Because if Dark Slayers keeps it close, I could see them wanting that. But if they lose by 30 or something, I could see it being eliminated completely, and we end up with Morgans and Apollos.
All right. Well, that'll do it for my mailbag questions. Does anybody have one that is just desperately must be read? Besides that, I've gotten a lot during the course of the show, but I cannot weed through them all.
I got a quick piggyback off that last question, actually.
Okay.
I have some other ones, but I don't know if they're worthy. What do we think about the voting for playoffs? Should number 5 and 6 get a vote, considering they might not even qualify if they're actual playoffs beyond the plan?
I think if they're in playoffs, they should get a vote, right? The question is, should they be in playoffs?
I think like award stat. I think that very similar to how the award stat should go. I think it should just be the top 4. You guys have to play in. I don't think you get a voice on this, in my opinion.
I kind of tend to agree. Like it's kind of fucked up that if you lose the play in, you still get a say on what the top 4 or whoever the final four, I should say, get to play on. I think the whole point of voting only playoffs was that the people who are actually going to play the games when it mattered should be able to dictate what maps they play on. And I think if Weaponized Autism and Law and Order is going to lose first round. Weaponized Autism obviously has a better chance in the play-in, but probably not going to win either. So now they get to dictate what the top four, final four get to play on. I could see the argument against that.
All right. I do have one more question that was submitted very early that I feel compelled to read because it was so public. Eric, this is just for you, buddy. Here is my USL Live question. Out of the 4 matches Eric played, he went negative 3 out of 4 of them. Is it fair to assume that Eric should stop talking trash at this point to Splitta? Because without Sav, he is absolutely garbage and has been exposed. But before you say he played without Sav and blah, 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 I think we all know the level of competition has been completely changed in the last 4 seasons. Splitta never went 9-22 in 3 games, even while leading and being super faded. And Eric also went negative twice in the most stacked squad in history. Do we need any more evidence that Eric is trash and should be a 2.5 star rated player at best?
Like I told him in pub, I could go 0-11 and I'll still talk shit to him. I troll him for laughs and reactions, and he gives it to me every time, so it's not going to stop.
But are you trash? Okay. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to get to some announcements here. First up, let's talk about mailbag questions. Again, we want them. Send your questions to me as private messages anytime you like on Discord. I'll keep them anonymous. Also, to add to that, there's a new mailbag feature on the Discord channel. Go check it out if you want to. You can submit mailbag questions to the show that way. We got several of them that way this week. Although be aware that multiple people affiliated with staff and the show will see those questions. So if you want them to be truly anonymous, please message me directly. But thank you to MP for making that. Also, want to announce that the official show match between LTDN and G Unit is going to occur in the offseason. I'm going to be hosting that as my traditional offseason game. Official rosters have to be submitted in that game to Tactical no later than August the 20th. The date for the game is to be determined, but August the 20th is the deadline for final submission of those rosters. It will be best of 3, and map is to be determined. So looking forward to that in the offseason. Any other final comments from the panel before we close it out?
I sent it to in PM, but I think we should do an extra episode this week for just mailbags because there's still like 5 or 6 left. So
There's like a bajillion of them, yeah.
if you guys have the time, maybe an extra episode.
Okay. We'll see what we can do. But no promises from me, but we'll see what we can do. Submit your questions early, and we can weigh through them and see what the really good ones are, because I don't want to miss any good ones. But that'll do it for USL Live and the Season 53 Week 6 preview show. You can play Infantry for free. Download the game right now on Steam. Just type Free Infantry in the search bar or visit freeinfantry.com. If you're interested in league play, visit uslzone.com. You can sign up there on site, and you can view rosters, schedules, and forums. Get involved. Vote on the games, as I'm encouraging other people to do. I'll also check out our YouTube videos there. And you can check out all those videos on the Infantry Online YouTube page that's built and maintained by military police, and you can relive the nostalgia anytime you want. We've been doing it all week, thanks to Mecca reposting some really good ones, maybe for some channels that are tangentially connected to USL Live as well. And also, like and subscribe, because it does help the algorithm. I'd like to thank my co-hosts for the show today. We have Mecca, Herth, and Eric. Thank you to our executive producer, as always, Military Police. This has been Romulocks, and you've been listening to USL Live.